If you or your child has been diagnosed with cancer, you're faced with a lot of difficult decisions that you have to make. One of those decisions might be whether or not you want to participate in a clinical trial. Because sometimes, the most promising treatment for a cancer diagnosis is only available as part of a clinical trial. However, the word trial might make you feel a little uneasy at first. And questions might come up like, is it really safe? Could something go wrong? And what should we actually expect? These concerns are understandable, and many people feel the same way. But usually, that's because very few of us really know how these trials work and what they're actually for. That's exactly why, in the next few videos, we're going to answer all the most important questions about clinical trials. And what's really involved. You'll learn which children and adolescents are eligible for a clinical trial, how a clinical trial works, and of course also what the potential opportunities and risks are. So, to understand this better, let's start right from the very beginning with what a clinical trial actually is. In short, a clinical trial investigates how well a new type of treatment works in people and how well it's tolerated. This could be, for example, a newly developed drug or a specific procedure. For the sake of simplicity, we'll just use the general term treatment here. That kind of sums it up best. What's important is, before a clinical trial can even get started, numerous preclinical studies have already taken place. This means the treatment is first tested in the lab and meticulously examined, or to be more precise, put under the microscope. If it's a new drug, it's first tested on cells and then on lab animals. Unfortunately, we can't yet do without that to protect people. And only when the new treatment is classified as safe and promising at this stage can the clinical testing phase begin. By the way, the word clinical doesn't mean the trial necessarily takes place in a clinic. It simply means the treatment is being tested on people as opposed to the experiments in the lab. So, what's the point of all this? Clinical trials are designed to answer the following important questions, above all. First, how effective is the new treatment? In other words, does it offer advantage compared to existing therapies? And second, how safe is the new treatment? For example, is it well tolerated? And what are the side effects? Or even more specifically, what is the optimal dosage and what is the best procedure? Okay, so it's mainly about the effectiveness and also the safety of a new treatment. What you should also definitely know is that clinical trials run in different testing phases, because each new testing phase will build on the information from the previous phase. In other words, only when one phase is successfully completed can the next one begin. So it is approached step by step. First in small groups, then in larger ones. At the beginning, you have the phase 1 clinical trials. Yeah, where it's initially, let's do it like this. Here, it's initially about just a few. At first, it involves just a few, yes, patients taking part. Here, for example, they test how a new treatment behaves in the body, how it needs to be dosed to be effective, and what side effects it has. In phase 2, the focus is more targeted on how effective the treatment actually is. Here too, the number of participants is still manageable, but it's already significantly larger than in phase 1. In some studies, phase 1 and phase 2 are also combined. Yes, this is done so that potential new therapies can reach everyone who could benefit from them more quickly. In phase 3 studies, okay, let's build this up quickly. So 1, 2, 3, then you actually have you and you and you, a few more, almost got it, there. In phase 3 studies, a great many, yes, often hundreds of patients take part, and by this point, a fair amount is already known about the new therapy. In this phase, the new treatment is compared directly with the standard therapy. Some patients receive a placebo, which is a sham medication with no active ingredient. But of course, these patients still receive the most effective standard therapy available at the time. This is the moment that shows whether the new treatment is actually better, or at least as good as, what is normally considered the best or only treatment. Children and adolescents with cancer most often participate in a special form of phase 3 studies, known as therapy optimization studies. This is usually no longer about testing a completely new treatment, but about further improving a treatment that is already known to be effective. For example, by changing the dosage to reduce side effects, or by combining different medications in new ways. And last but not least, there are also phase 4 clinical trials. Here, the focus is on how a treatment that has already been approved works in the long term. It's a long-term observation. The main thing they check is how the treatment holds up in everyday life and how it works for specific patient groups. Additionally, this is how rare side effects can also be identified. And one more thing, in pediatric oncology, a lot of research also takes place in registries. But registries are not clinical trials because nothing new is being tested. Instead, data is collected and analyzed, for example, on the molecular properties of different tumors. This allows doctors to find out how the treatment can be further improved. But in order for your data to be used for research purposes, you have to give your consent beforehand. This means that by participating in a registry, you can also actively contribute to making care even better in the future. Of course, the decision for or against participating in a clinical trial is voluntary and completely individual. And of course, the better you understand what exactly is involved and why, the more clearly you can weigh whether participation is an option for you or your child. However, there are also certain requirements you have to meet to be able to participate in a study. If you want to know more about that, just click on the next video. There, we'll continue with exactly that question, namely, who is eligible for clinical studies in the first place and what are the potential benefits. So, see you then.